नानाशास्त्रविचारणैकनिपुणौ सद्धर्मसंस्थापकौ लोकानां हितकारिणौ त्रिभुवने मान्यौ शरण्याकरौ राधाकृष्णपदारविन्दभजनानन्देन मत्तालिकौ वन्दे रूपसनातनौ रघुयुगौ श्रीजीवगोपालकौ. So we will recite text 9, 10 and 11 today. They are very long and beautiful verses. Verse number 9 talks about hierarchy of places. Which place is better than which place? Verse number 10 talks about hierarchy of persons. Which type of people are better than which type? And text 11 talks about the glory of Radha Kund for a retired preacher in his old age. So please repeat. वैकुंठा जनितो वरा मधुपुरी तत्रापि रासोत्सवात् वृन्दारण्यमुदारपाणिरमणा तत्रापि गोवर्धनः राधाकुण्डमिहापि गोकुलपते प्रेमामृताप्लावनात् कुर्यादस्य विराजतो गिरितटे सेवां विवेकिनकः. Of the full. वैकुंठा जनितो वरा मधुपुरी तत्रापि रासोत्सवात् वृन्दारण्यमुदारपाणिरमणात् तत्रापि गोवर्धनः राधाकुण्डमिहापि गोकुलपते प्रेमामृताप्लावनात् कुर्याद् अस्य विराजतो गिरितटे सेवां विवेकिनकः. So we go to the text 10. Today is a great day of recitation. Hierarchy of people. कर्मिभ्यः परितो हरे प्रियतया व्यक्तिं ययुर्ज्ञानिनस् तेभ्यो ज्ञानविमुक्तभक्तिपरमा प्रेमैकनिष्ठास्ततः तेभ्यस्ताः पशुपालपङ्कजदृशस् ताभ्योऽपि साराधिका प्रेष्ठा तद्वदीयं तदीयसरसि तां नाश्रयेत् कः कृति. Long one. कर्मिभ्यः परितो हरे प्रियतया व्यक्तिं ययुर्ज्ञानिनस् तेभ्यो ज्ञानविमुक्तभक्तिपरमा प्रेमैकनिष्ठास्ततः तेभ्यस्ता पशुपालपङ्कजदृशस्ताभ्योऽपि साराधिका प्रेष्ठा तद्वदीयं तदीयसरसि तां नाश्रयेत् कः कृति. Wow, you're all Sanskrit scholars. Amazing.
Because it's all jumbled up, you don't realize that how important.
Let's congratulate ourselves. We are doing great. Now last one. Residing at Radha Kund. With permission of one spiritual master. Krishnasyochai pranaya vasatihi preyasibhyopi radha kundam chasya munibhirabhita tadrugeva vyadhayi yat preshtairapyam yat prerasthap yat preshtairapyalas yat preshtairapi alama asulabham kim punar bhakti bhajam tat premedam sakrudapi saraha snatura vishkaroti. Krishnasyochai pranaya vasati preyasibhyopi radha kundam chasya munibhirabhitas tadrugeva vyadhayi yat preshtairapi alam asulabham kim puna bhakti bhajam tat premedam sakrudapi saraha snatura vishkaroti. Great. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for studying Shri Upadeshamrut. Today we'll try and complete all the 3 verses. So wear your mental jogging shoes and be ready for a run. So, having described the importance of sadhana bhakti and having perfected the process under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, one is allowed to enter further into the realm of Raganuga Bhakti. We saw that in the 8th verse. And there further one elevates oneself to the stage of Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. So how this evolution takes place of consciousness is very natural. There is nothing artificial in this. Just like when a child is growing, the ability to topple and be on your belly comes first. Then comes the ability to crawl. Then comes the ability to stand without falling up, on the ground. Then comes the ability to put one step and go a little ahead. And then comes the ability to walk without any difficulty. Then comes running. And this is a very natural process. If a child who has not yet learned to even properly stand up, if he tries to imitate someone who is running, what will happen? Badly. It's called khud ke daant khud hi tod lena. So in the same manner, in Bhakti Yoga, there is nothing artificial. As we evolve our consciousness to higher stages, we naturally get to see how further we are getting to know what to do, how to do, with whom to do, and it's a very natural process. So therefore, no more Utavala Navara Gudgyala Bashinga, which we had last time said, that somebody wants to get married, is so eager for the marriage ceremony to complete that he puts, instead of putting that whatever ornament, bashing, at the knee area. So we don't have to be like that. So having given enough cautions and having taken us through all the instructions that are prerequisite to be followed to come to this stage, now Rupa Goswami is describing what is the further thing to be done by such a devotee. So we will quickly get an overview of the text and its purport, and then we will directly go and hear it in record while trying to figure out whether that sequence makes sense. So in text 9 there is description of hierarchy of places, which place is better than which one. Prabhupada begins the purport by telling about how spiritual world is the 3/4 of the creation and material world is the 1/4 of the creation of the Lord. Ekapada vibhuti, tripada vibhuti. In this material world, there are obviously problems, but beyond this, the spiritual world is far superior. In spiritual world, there is hierarchy of planets and places. So there is Mathura and the adjoining areas are better. Better than Mathura are forests of Vrindavan. Better than forests of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill. Better than Govardhan Hill is Radha Kund. And it is here that the super excellent pastimes of Radha and Krishna take place with their choicest devotees. You want to be privy to that event, you join us from Vachovegam onwards. Then the last paragraph of the purport talks about importance of Radha Kund, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally took the trouble to excavate it. First to discover it, and then he ordered Rupa Sanatana Goswami etc. to excavate it, to make it little proper for visiting of devotees. So this is very elaborately described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but here we will see it briefly. In Madhya Leela, chapter 18, text 1 to 13 is the description. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Vrindavan happened in 1514. 1514 year. And then Radha Kund was actually excavated in 1554. That's 40 years later. So that also Prabhupada describes. Rupa Raghunath, of the 6 Goswamis, these two, they actually excavated Radha Kund and made it proper for our visit and prayer, etc. And then finally Prabhupada concludes by saying this Radha Kund's importance cannot be figured out by people of non-Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Those who are worshippers of Radharani, Gaudiyas, alone can understand the significance of this Radha Kund. And that's a very, very special place for them to go. So, we would like to hear today this purport. And I want you to mentally go through the sequence which I just now described.
Tatrapi rasotsavad Vrindaranyamudar paniramanat Tatrapi govardhana Radha kundam ihapi gokulapate premamrita plavanat kuryad asya virajito तटे सेवां विवेकिनकाः.
The holy place, known as Mathura, is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathurapuri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Ras Leela pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna, and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, the super excellent Sri Radha Kund stands supreme, for it is overflooded with the ambrosial nectarine prem of the Lord of Gokul, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is unwilling to serve this divine Radha Kund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The spiritual world is 3/4 of the total creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is the most exalted region. The spiritual world is naturally superior to the material world. However, Mathura and the adjoining areas, although appearing in the material world, are considered superior to the spiritual world, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself appeared at Mathura. The interior forests of Vrindavan are considered superior to Mathura because of the presence of the 12 forests, Dvarasavan, such as Talavan, Madhuvan, and Bahulavan, which are famous for the various pastimes of the Lord. Thus, the interior Vrindavan forest is considered superior to Mathura. But superior to these forests is the divine Govardhan Hill, because Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill like an umbrella, raising it with his lotus-like beautiful hand to protect his associates, the denizens of Braj, from the torrential rains sent by the angry Indra, king of the demigods. It is also at Govardhan Hill that Krishna tends his cows with his cowherd friends. And there also he had his rendezvous with his most beloved Sri Radha and engaged in loving pastimes with her. Radha Kund, at the foot of Govardhan, is superior to all because it is there that love of Krishna overflows. Advanced devotees prefer to reside at Radha Kund because this place is the site of many memories of the eternal, loving affairs between Radha and Krishna. Rati Vilas. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, it is stated that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first visited the area of Brajabhumi, he could not at first find the location of Radha Kund. This means that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was actually searching for the exact location of Radha Kund. Finally, he found the holy spot, and there was a small pond there. He took his bath in that small pond and told his devotees that the actual Radha Kund was situated there. Later, the pond was excavated by Lord Chaitanya's devotees, headed first by the 6 Goswamis, such as Rupa and Raghunath Das. Presently, there is a large lake known as Radha Kund there. Srila Rupa Goswami has given much stress to Radha Kund because of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire to find it. Who then would give up Radha Kund and try to reside elsewhere? No person with transcendental intelligence would do so. The importance of Radha Kund, however, cannot be realized by other Vaishnava Sampradayas, nor can persons uninterested in devotional service of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understand the spiritual importance and divine nature of Radha Kund. Thus, Radha Kund is mainly worshipped by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the followers of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
How many of you have visited Radha Kund? Okay. How many of you heard His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj speak on Radha Kund? Okay, few. So I have a whole class recorded, which I won't play here, but I would give you as a homework for going through at home. There are 2 classes: Glories of Radha Kund, Approaching Radha Kund. So beautiful classes with very thorough preparation of consciousness in approaching this beautiful place. Now, even if you have not gone there, you should know something special about this place. After Krishna killed Vrishabhasura, who is that? Arishtasura, who came in the form of bull. The gopis told him that you have become contaminated by the sin of killing a male cow. It's a great sin, and you must atone for it. And Krishna said, come on, he was a demon, not some pure, cow or a bull kind of. They said, nothing doing, we are all gopas, and the sight itself of somebody killing a bull is unbearable for us, and you must atone for this. So Krishna said, what do I do for atoning? So the devotees recommended that you should bathe in all the holy places all over the universe. Now if you and I are told to do that, we will say, Prabhu. So therefore, Krishna, he said, oh, that's it. So it is said with his heel, Krishna's lotus footprints, there are various ayudhas and astras and everything there. All the energies reside at the lotus feet of Krishna. With the heel, Krishna stuck on the ground. As soon as he struck, there formed a nice cavity. And then Krishna mentally remembered, just for a few seconds, all those holy places in the universes. All of them in their personified form appeared in the sky. All around Krishna, offering prayers, bowing down before him. And all the Brajavasis are watching this. What is happening? And then Krishna, they said, so what's the order, sir? And Krishna says, please fill up to make a kund here so that I can bathe. So all of those holy places, holy tirthas, they manifested themselves in the water form. And huge pond was formed. And then Krishna very nicely, ceremoniously took bath, And then he came out. And after putting on his fresh clothes and everything, he told the gopis that you, because of siding with Arishtasura, have also become adharmic. You have become contaminated by taking sides with such a demon. And you must also bathe in order to atone for your sin. They said, this is an interesting counteraction. And then Krishna told them, but don't mind, already there is a kund here and it's filled with all the tirthas, holy places, so you can just bathe in this and that takes care of everything. They said, no, that is already contaminated with your sin. We will form our own. Can you imagine this kind of pastimes with God somebody does? And then Srimati Radharani and all the gopis, they formed a nearby place where they started with their bangles that were broken, scratching the ground. It's like the new JCB that they found out for excavating a pond. And they were doing this business and Krishna is watching, when is this going to finish? And when will the pond form and when will the water come there? From where will it come? But they were very determined, to do their efforts. So that continued. And after some time, Krishna took pity on them. He said, I think you are tired. This is enough of what you tried. And then again, Krishna requested them that you allow the water of my kund to overflow into this one. Which they did finally. And in this way, the kund that was formed by Krishna is called Shyama Kund. And the one that was carved out by Radharani is called Radha Kund. Radha Kund contains not water. but liquefied form of Krishna Prema. If Krishna Prema were to manifest in the form of water in this world, that is the water of Radha Kund. So the affection that Srimati Radharani carries for Krishna is in its liquefied form made available for us to contact and be purified with, be inundated with, in the form of this beautiful lake, Radha Kund. So many years later, these places became, so to say, invisible to the human eye. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his visit, he was desperately looking for this Radha Kund and Shyam Kund. And after going through all the ordeal, he finally found out they were looking like rice paddy fields in which there were some, they call pukur, ponds. And he knew these are the places, being Krishna himself. And in this way, he brought it back to our vision again, with the help of Rupa Raghunath, the Goswamis. So now, when we go there, what are we to think about? So most important thing about approaching Radha Kund is the mood of reverence towards it. At any point of time, even when devotees from Western countries were brought by Srila Prabhupada to Radha Kund, and he saw that they were jumping and frolicking like children, in the waters of Radha Kund, Prabhupada became very grave and upset. And he said, this is a very serious business. This is not playful thing. And you should approach with prayerful mood. And in this way they were reprimanded. In fact, Radhanath Maharaj, in one of the yatras that he took, he never allowed any devotee to bathe inside. He said, you can only take drop bath in this place. Because the moment you tend to enter inside, I don't know, some kind of childishness does awaken, and we tend to forget. It is also said that at the base of Radha Kund there is a connection with Kshirodaka Sagara. It's a deep lake, and there is a picture of this lake being completely dried up during its cleaning times. And at the bottom you can actually see the milk coming, not water, from the lake. And as our scriptures tell us, that it has got a connection with the Kshirodaka Sagara, where Vishnu resides. So these places are not ordinary, nor should we approach them with playful or irreverential mood. Because Radha Kund is such a exalted place, Gaudiya Vaishnavas considered Radha Kund as the most important place in the universe, and the association on the bank of Radha Kund is highly sought after by them. So there are many holy places in the world, but as we know, all the holy places and their potencies are very much present in this one place, in Radha Kund and Shyam Kund. So that's about the glory of the most exalted place in the universe, Radha Kund. Now we go to text 10, hierarchy of persons. Now in this we will learn about how karmis are. So there are karmis which follow the Vedas and enjoy life without reference to Krishna consciousness. There are vikarmis who don't follow the Vedas, want to enjoy life anyway, as they say, eat healthy, sleep well, enjoy fully, die anyway. So that's the life of a vikarmi. So they are also described in the purport. And then comes the discussion about jnanis. What are they seeking after? Where do they land up in their life? So in jnanis there are Brahmavadis and Mayavadis, two types. And finally beyond is Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama. Beyond them are the people who are only attached to bhakti, Jnana Vimukta. And better than those who only perform devotional service, there are Premaika nishtastataha, those who are fully absorbed in loving Krishna with steadiness. Amongst those who love Krishna, the best are Pashupala Pankajadrushaha, those who are gopis. And amongst the gopis, Tebhyopi Sa Radhika, the topmost is Srimati Radharani. Again the topic comes back to Radha Kund. Preshtha Tadvadiya Tadiya Sarasi. Similarly, very dear to Krishna, as good as Radharani, is the place Radha Kund. So Radha Kund and Radharani are very dear to Krishna. That's the last line. Tam na ashrayat kah kruti. Who is that fortunate person who will not reside in this place?
Karmebhya parito harehe priyataya vyaktim yayurgyaninas tebhyo gnana vimukta bhakta parama premaika nishtastataha Tebhyasta Pashupala Pankajadrishas Tabhyopi Saradhika Preshthatadvaryam Tadiya Sarasi Tam Nashrayetka Kriti.
By the way, you must know, this is Mukunda. What is his name? Mukunda Datta Prabhu's voice. Born American. And a Sanskrit scholar in ISKCON. So, very, very refined Vaishnava. Very exalted. And very much cultured in everything. So I happen to be one of his students in music as well as Sanskrit. And he is the person to be with in these two aspects of Krishna consciousness.
Shastra, it is said that of all types of fruitive workers, he who is advanced in knowledge of the higher values of life is favored by the Supreme Lord Hari. Out of many such people who are advanced in knowledge, Gyanis, one who is practically liberated by virtue of his knowledge, may take to devotional service. He is superior to the others. However, one who has actually attained prema, pure love of Krishna, is superior to him. The gopis are exalted above all the advanced devotees because they are always totally dependent upon Sri Krishna, the transcendental cowherd boy. Among the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the most dear to Krishna. Her Kund, lake, is as profoundly dear to Lord Krishna as this most beloved of the gopis. Who then will not reside at Radhakund and, in a spiritual body surcharged with ecstatic devotional feelings, a Prakrita Bhava, render loving service to the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Govinda, who perform their Astakaliya Leela, their eternal eightfold daily pastimes. Indeed, those who execute devotional service on the banks of Radhakund are the most fortunate people in the universe. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. At the present moment, almost everyone is engaged in some kind of fruitive activity. Those who are desirous of gaining material profits by working are called karmis, or fruitive workers. All living entities within this material world have come under the spell of Maya. This is described in the Vishnu Purana 6:7-61. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetra Jnakya Tata Para Avidya karma samgyanya tritiya shaktir isyate. Sages have divided the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into three categories, namely the spiritual energy, marginal energy, and material energy. The material energy is considered to be third-class energy, Tritiya Shakti. Those living beings within the jurisdiction of the material energy sometimes engage themselves like dogs and hogs in working hard simply for sense gratification. However, in this life, or after executing pious activities in the next life, some karmis become strongly attached to performing various kinds of sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. Thus, on the strength of their pious merit, they are elevated to the heavenly planets. Actually, those who perform sacrifices strictly according to Vedic injunctions are elevated to the moon and planets above the moon. As mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9:21, Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. After exhausting the results of their so-called pious activities, they again return to the earth, which is called Martya Loka, the place of death. Although such persons may be elevated to the heavenly planets by their pious activities, and although they may enjoy life there for many thousands of years, they nonetheless must return to this planet when the results of their pious activities are exhausted.
So, this is a discussion of karmi. There is material energy, marginal energy, and spiritual energy. Those are very busy in this energy, wanting to exploit, enjoy it for sense gratification, are called karmis, fruitive workers, work hard, party harder. So that's their mood. And gradual elevation of these people is also mentioned. Then they come to scriptures and they say, scriptures provide me quick material results without having to work, slog so hard. So they take to pious enjoyments under the following of Vedas. So they become little better. Now next paragraph talks about vikarmis as well.
This is the position of all karmis, including those who act piously and those who act impiously. On this planet, we find many businessmen, politicians, and others who are simply interested in material happiness. They attempt to earn money by all means, not considering whether such means are pious or impious. Such people are called karmis, or gross materialists. Among the karmis are some vikarmis, people who act without the guidance of Vedic knowledge. Those who act on the basis of Vedic knowledge perform sacrifices for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu and to receive benedictions from him. In this way, they are elevated to higher planetary systems. Such karmis are superior to the vikarmis, for they are faithful to the directions of the Vedas and are certainly dear to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita 4:11, Krishna says, Ye yathamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. In whatever way one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly. Krishna is so kind that he fulfills the desires of the karmis and jnanis, not to speak of the bhaktas. Although the karmis are sometimes elevated to higher planetary systems, as long as they remain attached to fruitive activities, they must accept new material bodies after death. If one acts piously, he can attain a new body amongst the demigods in the higher planetary systems. Or he may attain some other position in which he can enjoy a higher standard of material happiness. On the other hand, those who are engaged in impious activities are degraded and take birth amongst animals, trees, and plants. Thus, those fruitive actors who do not care for Vedic directions, the vikarmis, are not appreciated by saintly persons. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5:5-4, Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya aparnoti nasaro manye yata atmano yam asan api kleshada ashadeha. Materialists who work hard like dogs and hogs simply for sense gratification are actually mad. They simply perform all kinds of abominable activities simply for sense gratification. Materialistic activities are not at all worthy of an intelligent man, for as a result of such activities, one gets a material body, which is full of misery. The purpose of...
So, this was description of vikarmis. How do they look like? What do they feel for? What do they do? Now, Nunam pramattaha kurute vikarma. Pramatta means sufficiently mad. What do they do? They are expert in performing vikarma activities, which are meant for destruction of the world. For what do they do them? Indriya pritaya. Want to please their senses. Aprunoti. And therefore he says, Na sadhu manne. I don't think this is very wise. Yata atmano ayam. The human body is given to the Atma for what purpose? To get freed from all sufferings. But to do activities that will get you another material body is a dangerous thing you are doing in human form of life. Asan api kleshad asadeha. The material body is not just asat, temporary. It is kleshad. It is designed for giving misery. So therefore one should be careful not to enjoy in materialistic pursuits only. Now continues the discussion on purpose.
Life is to get out of the threefold miserable conditions, which are concomitant with material existence. Unfortunately, fruitive workers are mad to earn money and acquire temporary material comforts by all means. Therefore, they risk being degraded to a lower species of life. Materialists foolishly make many plans to become happy in this material world. They do not stop to consider that they will live only for a certain number of years, out of which they must spend the major portion acquiring money for sense gratification. Ultimately, such activities end in death. Materialists do not consider that after giving up the body, they may become embodied as lower animals, plants, or trees. Thus, all their activities simply defeat the purpose of life. Not only are they born ignorant, but they act on the platform of ignorance, thinking that they are getting material benefits in the shape of skyscraper buildings, big cars, honorable positions, and so on. The materialists do not know that in the next life they will be degraded, and that all their activities simply serve as parabhava, their defeat. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.5. Parabhavastavad abodhajata.
So now begins the discussion on Jnani, and then after that paragraph will begin the discussion on what are the defects of cultivating Jnana.
One should therefore be eager to understand the science of the soul, Atma Tattva. Unless one comes to the platform of Atma Tattva, by which one understands that the soul, and not the body, is oneself, one remains on the platform of ignorance.
So material energy, karmi. Marginal energy, jiva, atma, jnani. That is his field of action. He likes to talk about Atma Tattva, how the spirit is different from the matter, all that, moksha discussion. Spiritual energy, bhakta. So karmi, jnani and bhakta. And that's why the hierarchy is being mentioned as such.
Thousands and millions of ignorant people who are wasting their time simply gratifying their senses. One may come to the platform of knowledge and understand these higher values of life. Such a person is called a jnani. The jnani knows that fruitive activities will bind him to material existence and cause him to transmigrate from one kind of body to another. as indicated in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the term Sarira Bandha, bound to bodily existence. As long as one maintains any conception of sense enjoyment, his mind will be absorbed in karma, fruitive activity, and this will oblige him to transmigrate from one body to another. Thus, a jnani is considered superior to a karmi, because he at least refrains from the blind activities of sense enjoyment. This is the verdict of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, although a jnani may be liberated from the ignorance of the karmis, unless he comes to the platform of devotional service, he is still considered to be in ignorance, avidya. Although one may be accepted as a jnani, or advanced in knowledge, his knowledge is considered impure because he has no information of devotional service, and thus neglects the direct worship of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So what is the defect of cultivating jnana?
Again, no information of devotion.
No information of devotional service, and does not neglects purposefully the direct worship of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. We can also see that in our lives, that when we cultivate jnana, we tend to neglect our devotional duties to Krishna. Sometimes we think, what is this Sankirtan? Kirtan mein baith ke kya hone wala hai? I will directly reach for the class, for example. So the Kirtan is an important part. Actually, that is such an important activity of devotional service. But we are more interested in getting some knowledge, information. So we tend to neglect. And that is a sign that this person has not yet further made progress. Interestingly, Rupa Goswami is in Radhakund and Prabhupada is in Karmis and Jnanis. He is catching them and bashing them up in the purport, just trying to explain, and very elaborately. Prabhupada really gives time for explaining them. How important it is to give up these platforms of our action and come to a higher level as early as possible. So all of us have to rack our brains as much as we rack our brains for making money and making facilities for comfortable living. We have to rack our brains, how can I go quickly from this Karmi platform to Jnani platform to the Bhakta platform in this one lifetime itself. So that's the discussion. Now begins the discussion on Bhakta, how Jnani to Bhakta progression takes place.
When a jnani takes to devotional service, he rapidly becomes superior to an ordinary jnani. Such an advanced person is described as Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama. How a jnani takes to devotional service is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, wherein Krishna says, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Actually, a person is wise when he surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna. But such a Mahatma, a great soul, is very rare. After taking to devotional service under the regulative principles, a person may come to the platform of spontaneous love of Godhead, following in the footsteps of great devotees like Narada, Sanaka, and Sanatana. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then recognizes him to be superior. The devotees who have developed love of God are certainly in an exalted position.
So till now is the Bhakta to Jnani, Jnani to Bhakta transformation. And amongst them, those who are following in the footsteps of Narada, Sanak, Sanatana, etc. are considered the best because they have given up this Jnana pursuit altogether and wholeheartedly engaged themselves in practices of Bhakti Yoga. Now what is the highest form of Bhakti? That's the question. And that Prabhupada will start answering in the next paragraph. So someone may say, well, I have reached here. Bhakti ke dwar par aakar khada hu main. Next what? So they say, okay, we will tell you more.
Of all these devotees, the gopis are recognized as superior because they do not know anything other than satisfying Krishna. Nor do the gopis expect any return from Krishna. Indeed, sometimes Krishna puts them into extreme suffering by separating himself from them. Nonetheless, they cannot forget Krishna. When Krishna left Vrindavan for Mathura, the gopis became most dejected and spent the rest of their lives simply crying in separation from Krishna. This means that in one sense they were never actually separated from Krishna. There is no difference between thinking of Krishna and associating with him. Rather, Vipralamba Seva, thinking of Krishna in separation, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did, is far better than serving Krishna directly. Thus, of all the devotees who have developed unalloyed devotional love for Krishna, the gopis are the most exalted. And out of these exalted gopis, Srimati Radharani is the highest. No one can excel the devotional service of Srimati Radharani. Indeed, even Krishna cannot understand the attitude of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, he took her position and appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just to understand her transcendental feelings.
So we are talking here about going to Radha Kund, residing in the association of most exalted Vaishnavas and practicing spiritual culture. Prabhupada left Radha Kund and all the exalted association made available in Vrindavan just so that he can go out and preach Krishna consciousness and make many unfortunate people fortunate. Vipralamba Seva. So when Prabhupada says about these concepts, he is not just talking theory. Another thing is that in Vipralamba, the experience of Krishna is more intense and pleasure-giving than in even Sambhoga. And this is a very great science. It's a spiritual science, how it works. And we need to learn it in our lives. Thirdly, if Prabhupada left Radha Kund to go out and preach, what do you think we should be doing in our life? We should also practice Vipralamba Seva, service in separation. We should carry these places in our hearts and go establish them wherever we go through our thoughts, words and actions. And this is what Prabhupada has set for us as an example. So despite he being a Paramahamsa devotee, direct associate of so many of the spiritual residents in Golok Vrindavan, he spent his time doing preaching activities. So we have to learn from this, especially this separation, service in separation is something that is our main mood. And this has to be dealt with all sincerity and earnestness. How can we feel service separation from Krishna? First thing is to cultivate a lifestyle where we can be free from distractions that thwart our remembrance of Krishna. So we have to create a culture or a lifestyle that naturally reminds us of Krishna wherever we are. Sthane sthita shrutigata tanuvang manobhir. And this usually happens through a regulated and systematic hearing process that we cultivate such remembrance. So we studied Shravana Dasha, Manana Dasha, etc. Second thing we must do is to get as much as we can know about Krishna through Prabhupada, through other Vaishnavas, ISKCON devotees. And we should learn this science of thinking about Krishna in his Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, various aspects. Then it will become very natural to feel separation. And thirdly, especially during our chanting, we should cultivate this mood that we are crying for Krishna. We want him to appear, but he has not yet given us his audience. So by cultivating these things, we can experience genuine feelings of separation, which will actually purify our heart. So now begins the discussion of Bhava Bhakti and how Radha Kunda connects to it.
In this way, Srila Rupa Goswami gradually concludes that Srimati Radharani is the most exalted devotee of Krishna, and that her Kund, lake, Sri Radha Kund, is the most exalted place. This is verified in a quotation from the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Uttarakanda 45, as quoted in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopeshu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Just as Srimati Radharani is dear to the Supreme Lord Krishna, so her bathing place, Sri Radha Kund, is equally dear to Krishna. Among all the gopis, she alone stands supreme as the Lord's most beloved. Therefore, everyone interested in Krishna consciousness should ultimately take shelter of Radha Kund and execute devotional service there throughout one's life. This is the conclusion of Rupa Goswami in the 10th verse of Upadeshamrita.
So ultimately take shelter. Huh? The clause there. Ultimately means when? That's a good question to ask. So Prabhupada was asked this question also, that you talk about retiring in Krishna consciousness, right? When you retire, you should go to Radha Kund and stay there and cultivate Krishna consciousness. What do you think is the appropriate time or age for a devotee to retire? So this was a question asked to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, as far as I am concerned, I don't think I am either old, nor am I fit for such kind of retirement. I am actually relishing preaching activities more than being here, simply cultivating my own bhajan. In fact, one time there was one Mataji, she was preaching in Hawaii, and they had come to meet Srila Prabhupada, so she was trying to canvass that Prabhupada go and visit Hawaii. And she said, Prabhupada, the mangoes in Hawaii are really high class. And then there was another devotee who had given us another preaching proposal, I think going to London or some other place. And Prabhupada said, but preaching in London is sweeter than any of the mangoes in Hawaii. This is how one should see, one's service opportunity that one gets in one's life. So again, the discussion is about Radha Kund, but we must temper our attitude especially towards service in separation. So that is a consistent mood that is to be cultivated. And of course, at right point of time, guided by spiritual master and other devotees, we may take such shelters. They are not forbidden. They are actually instructions of our acharyas. Now begins the last verse. One of the reasons why I am making you hear and go through the purport by this method is because I know at home you won't do it with such absorption and with such insight that you get when you hear with other devotees together. So now comes the last verse for the day, text 11. In this, why is Radha Kund so exalted is further described. And then, how attaining Siddha Deha, spiritual form, is to be enacted. What is the practice that one should take for that? And then finally comes the discussion that if you do this practice of residing at Radha Kund, bathing, hearing, chanting, associating, serving at this place, then at the end of this lifetime you will surely go back home, back to Godhead. That assurance. So these are the three essential things in the purport.
Krishnasyochai प्रणयवदतिः प्रेयसीभ्योऽपि राधा कुण्डं चास्य मुनिभिरभितः तादृगेव व्यधायि यत्प्रेष्ठैरपि अलम् असुलभम् किं पुनर्भक्तिभाजाम् तत्प्रेमेदं सकृदपि सरः स्नातुराविष्करोति।
Of the many objects of favored delight, and of all the lovable damsels of Brajabhumi, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine Kund is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. Undoubtedly, Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by the great devotees. Therefore, it is even more difficult for ordinary devotees to attain. If one simply bathes once within those holy waters, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Why is Radha Kund so exalted? The lake is so exalted because it belongs to Srimati Radharani, who is the most beloved object of Sri Krishna. Amongst all the gopis, she is the most beloved. Similarly, her lake, Sri Radha Kund, is also described by great sages as the lake that is as dear to Krishna as Radha herself. Indeed, Krishna's love for Radha Kund and Srimati Radharani is the same in all respects. Radha Kund is very rarely attained, even by great personalities, fully engaged in devotional service, not to speak of ordinary devotees who are only engaged in the practice of Vaidhi Bhakti.
So if someone thinks after reading this discussion, so much of Radha Kund stay, Radha Kund stay, Radha Kund stay, what am I doing here? Interestingly, it is said here that this is very rarely attained, this position of staying at the bank of Radha Kund. I had one counselee, I won't name him, who had with us attended the Kartik Yatra, and he heard these glories of Radha Kund, and so many Vrindavan is full of all Radha Prem and all that stuff. So he became very excited. After we came back from Yatra, he was missing. And then I got to know that he had decided to stay in Vrindavan, in Govardhan, and especially go and start chanting whatever, 64, 128 rounds per day at Radha Kund. So, and he didn't have any mobile or anything, so it was difficult to get in touch with him from anywhere. So, I knew one devotee. I told him to go and meet him. First search him, and then to recognize him, and then to get to meet to talk to him. So then finally he got hold of that devotee, then he called me on phone. Then I spoke to him, said, what is happening? So he says, I'm experiencing the life of Vrajavasis, staying on the road, begging, for some money and some food, madhukari, and I'm going around like this chanting. Every day I do one Govardhan Parikrama. I said, wonderful. But is this our mood? Is this what Srila Prabhupada taught us to do? I asked him, do you accept Prabhupada as our teacher? He said, yeah, that is for sure. Is Prabhupada the pure devotee who will never misguide us in how we should approach transcendental subject matters? He said, yeah, 100% sure. And then I said, then what are you doing? Doing this practice. So he says, I really longed for this, that I should give it a try. But the background that we come from, the Pune Brahmacharya Ashram, which is more famous for its commando training abilities than just some normal training. He said it was difficult for me, so I decided to do this without permission. Very honest discussion. And then I said, I quoted this line from this verse. I said, this is very rarely attained. What does that mean? I asked him. He said, you have to have that spiritual caliber, otherwise you will not be allowed to stay in this place for long. I said, so let me see now. And that was the end of the conversation. After 2 months of staying like this, he actually became mad. He developed some kind of psychological problem. And I had been telling him, please come back, nice temple, good devotees, everything. He didn't listen. And then eventually he had to go through so much trouble. Medication and problem with parents. Parents were not willing to take him home. Can you imagine? The brahmachari wants to go home. And he says, okay, now I'm done with this life. I want to stay with you. They said no. Seeing his condition, they said, ISKCON should only take care of him. And we took care of him, actually. All throughout that whole ordeal, for almost, he spent another 2 extra years just to come out of that stage that he was going through psychologically. And eventually, after medication and everything, affection and care, and finally became a little normal so that he can do some service in ISKCON back again. So much for Radha Kund stay in Krishna consciousness when one is not qualified to approach this subject matter. So the point is, if you are not qualified, these places and this kind of facility is not under the jurisdiction of our will. It is actually completely under the jurisdiction of spiritual energy of Krishna. And that is why anyone who jumps forward, as they say, will actually have some trouble or other. And this is just one example I am giving. There are many in ISKCON who have tried this, only to fall flat on their teeth, get them broken in the figurative terms, and have landed up in some spiritual problem or other. So just like Srimad Bhagavatam's first 9 cantos, one has to thoroughly study so that one can enter into the 10th canto discussion of Bhagavatam. Similarly, one must thoroughly follow the first 8 instructions without practicing them nicely. If one tries to enter into this realm, 9, 10, 11, you will ruin your spiritual life. In simple words. So, my question to you. Okay, I'll come to the question just after the purport, because there's yet to complete.
It is stated that a devotee will at once develop pure love of Krishna in the wake of the gopis if he once takes bath in Radha Kund.
Hari Bol.
Srila Rupa Goswami recommends that even if one cannot live permanently on the banks of Radha Kund, he should at least take a bath in the lake as many times as possible. This is a most important item in the execution of devotional service.
Favorable instruction.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in this connection that Sri Radha Kund is the most select place for those interested in advancing their devotional service in the wake of the lady friends, Sakhis, and confidential serving maids, Manjaris, of Srimati Radharani. Living entities who are eager to return home to the transcendental kingdom of God, Goloka Vrindavan, by means of attaining their spiritual bodies, Siddha Deha, should live at Radha Kund, take shelter of the confidential serving maids of Sri Radha, and under their direction, engage constantly in her service. This is the most exalted method for those engaged in devotional service under the protection of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that even great sages and great devotees like Narada and Sanaka do not get an opportunity to come to Radha Kund to take their baths. What then? Speak of ordinary devotees. If by great fortune one gets an opportunity to come to Radha Kund and bathe even once, he can develop his transcendental love for Krishna, exactly as the gopis did. It is also recommended that one should live on the banks of Radha Kund and should be absorbed in the loving service of the Lord. One should bathe there regularly and give up all material conceptions, taking shelter of Sri Radha and her assistant gopis. If one is thus constantly engaged during his lifetime, after giving up the body, he will return home, back to Godhead, to serve Sri Radha in the same way as he contemplated during his life on the banks of Radha Kund. The conclusion is that to live on the banks of Radha Kund and to bathe there daily constitute the highest perfection of devotional service. It is a difficult position to attain, even for great sages and devotees like Narada. Thus, there is no limit to the glory of Sri Radha Kund. By serving Radha Kund, one can get an opportunity to become an assistant of Srimati Radharani under the eternal guidance of the gopis.
Okay. So my question to you, so whether one should reside at Radha Kund? You heard quite a bit of pros and cons and positives and negatives. What should we exactly do? Especially after examining Prabhupada's example, what do you think we should be doing? Okay, we periodically visit and bathe. Rest other time we do service in separation. Prabhupada followed the mood of Srimati Radharani. What is the mood of Srimati Radharani? That she goes and brings as many gopis as possible, organizes their efforts, coordinates them in such a way that Krishna's pleasure can be maximized, and herself stays in the background. This is the mood of Srimati Radharani. And this is exactly what Prabhupada did. Nikunja yuno latikeli siddher ya libhir yukti rapekshaniya tatrati dakshad ativallabhasya vande guru shri charanarvindam. Prabhupada was so expert. He got all of us, and now we celebrate festivals, and every now and then there is so much fools like us, who have no inclination for spiritual life. We get opportunity to participate in pastimes that we can't ever dare imagine. And this is the credit to Prabhupada. So Prabhupada made the mood of Srimati Radharani more prominent than just this act of physically residing at Radha Kund. So we have to pick up on that mood and mission. And throughout our life, if we cultivate this service in separation, while periodically visiting Dham, bathing, rejuvenating our Krishna consciousness through such contact, then at the fag end of our life, we will reap the ripe fruits of this practice that we have done, wherein the remembrance of Krishna, our eternal identity in service of Krishna, our particular place of residence and service to Krishna, everything will be revealed in due course of time. So we follow Prabhupada's mood the way he followed Srimati Radharani's example, by not residing at Radha Kund, but by serving Radha Kund in separation. So, any comments or questions?
There are many devotees who go to Radha Kund to take bath on Radharashtra. Is that advisable?
Yeah, periodically we said we should.
No, that is correct.
That's fine.
But when we go, we are told not to do it. When we go on efforts, we are told not to do it.
Yeah, that's the mood of our spiritual master. So there is a difference here in terms of what Prabhupada is saying and our immediate superior, our spiritual master, is saying. So by following that instruction, we make more spiritual advancement than by doing our own stuff. So if spiritual master orders you to bathe, you should bathe. And if he says don't bathe, we should not bathe. It's as simple as that.
And when it says it's rarely attained, it doesn't mean that we cannot go there or cannot stay or go.
It means that you can't access it. We go to Dham, right? We go inside Vrindavan. Do we enter Vrindavan? We don't. It's like let's say there is a beautiful Govardhan, that exists really, but there is a covering of Maya, like some white cloth being put on that. Then all we get to see are the contours and the shapes, but we actually don't access what it is. Similarly, Yoga Maya Samavruta, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. So it is rarely attained means it is not accessible to everybody. Although you may go there and do the exact same activities that the pure devotees do, still there is Tenga. There is nothing doing unless you are qualified. You cannot enter into these things simply by some kind of what they call the bargain method. You cannot barge. Prabhupada says in another place, this is a beautiful purport elsewhere. Prabhupada says in another place, instead of trying to search for Radha and Krishna in the bushes of Vrindavan, one will find them in serving the instructions of one spiritual master. It's a very famous statement of Prabhupada. So that's what is accessing that we are talking about. Any other?
Can we meditate that we are chanting near Radha?
Oh yes.
Not being personally present
Yeah.
there.
Manasa puja, Manasa seva.
Safe to get the water home then?
Yeah, we can.
Because we might put in Abhishek water or
Yes. That's okay. One thing is, we should not start new rituals in the name of, like one devotee in our yatra, he took out his beads and put into Radha Kund, Tulsi beads, to get them purified. And Shamanand Pru is a very humorous brahmachari, senior devotee. He looked at that and turned towards me and he says, here begins new Apasampradaya. Tulsi beads are already pure. On top of that, your spiritual master chanted on them and gave you Harinam Diksha. What they need purified for? So our devotees, wherever they go in Radha Kund, Sham Kund, whichever Uddhav carry, whichever place they will go, don't dip their beads and take them out. As if now I, along with all my offenses, have been purified now, with this bead now. That this is full sentimentality. So we should not do such things. Any other?
As stated here, Narada and Sanat, they do not get an opportunity to come to Radha Kund to take their path, but we get opportunity. How do we understand?
Access.
So how is it that they don't get access?
Because on spiritual platform also there are qualifications needed. When you can enter into what? We know how Lord Shiva wanted to enter into Ras Leela, he had to perform tapasya. Narad Muni had to perform tapasya, then he was given the opportunity to become Naradi Gopi. Because even to enter, you need appropriate mood, form, service, everything. Just like you want to go for some function at someone's home. Then unless they allow you the access, you are not going to enter just like that. At the door only they will send you home. Krishna ka what do you call, antaranga party ho. How will you suddenly enter there just like that? It's not possible. Yes.
What is the meaning of serving Radha Kund?
Serving Radha Kund, we just now saw two basic meanings. Periodically visiting and worshipping, bathing, chanting, hearing, whatever we can do there. That's one way of serving Radha Kund. Another is while we stay here, we should perform service in separation. Speak pure glories of the Lord to people that we meet in a way that they can appreciate them and become devotees themselves. So that is how we serve.
Is Sham Kund and Radha Kund connected?
Yes, they are connected to each other through a small passage. Any other?
Still, I will take separate dips, shampoo and Radha Kund, they are connected, or whatever is.
Don't ask engineering type questions. We acknowledge personalism. Okay, everything is personal. Yes.
Next step. In the photo, it says that about the materialists. Not only are they born ignorant, but they act on the platform of ignorance. Bhagavad Gita we see that ahankara vimudaha, vardaham ignorant. So if they are already born in ignorance, they are acting like that, then are they really acting or they need to act?
Oh, this is a typical dilemma. When a materialist is completely under the charge of Prakriti, who is acting? And we sorted that out earlier, that there is God, Ishvara, there is Jiva, and then there is Prakriti. So when we want to make emphasis on Jiva's free will, we say Jiva is acting. When we want to emphasize on Jiva's helplessness in front of the three modes, when he misuses his connection with, forgets his connection with Ishvara, we say Prakriti is acting. And when we say, want to emphasize the role of Ishvara in terms of being the supreme controller over all the Jivas and of the Prakriti, we say he is actually acting. So all are acting, not that one is acting. But what are we emphasizing, that will decide. Okay. So a few quick announcements before we end. First of all, I want to congratulate you for successfully completing another book with us. This is the third book you have completed with this stupid teacher that you have. First we did Ishopanishad, then Bhagavad Gita, now third, Nectar of Instruction. So I'm very happy and I congratulate you. Write a letter, personal letter to Srila Rupa Goswami, appreciating his book, and what are you going to take from it in your practice, seeking his blessings. So write a letter to Rupa Goswami. Whatever comes in your heart after having studied this beautiful book, just write nicely.